You know what? Let's get right into this. Because I saw that video of you playing with timpani mallets on a practice pad.
Yeah. You mean with the heavy sticks, right?
And you were doing kind of a Möller, like three strokes with each hand, ba, 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 with an
Oh,
accent.
yeah.
So this is something that's been a challenge for me recently, is trying to get more volume and more efficiency out of the stroke, like more snap with the finger. Because I spent so many years trying to play quietly, and now I want to play more loudly. So what would you say to somebody like me? Obviously practice with less rebound, but how do you think of it?
In general, in my opinion, the thing is that in these last couple of years, I had the chance to talk with so many drummers, and I asked this question because, for example, I grew up with Tony Royster Jr. and I mean, I grew up watching his videos. I'm from Italy; was very far. So I had the chance to talk with Tony in person. We were both in Curacao for the North Sea Jazz Festival, so we had chance to talk. He's so nice. I love him so much. And I remember watching his video that he was constantly talking about playing with marching band sticks or heavy sticks on the practice pad or pillow. And I basically grew up with the foundation to play with something heavier in my hands because when I go back to the drum kit, I can feel super fluid, no rigid, and very fast. But I talked with Mike Mitchell, I talked with Mason Guidry. I talked with Ronald. Ronald is my hero. This is very private, but I can show to everybody. Is my I don't know when I look this picture that we made here in Milan. By the way, I feel super inspired every time because I remember huge time we spent together was amazing. And Ronald was the first that said, "Why doing that? Because you're just forcing your body doing something that when you are on the kit." It is not anymore comfortable for you. So a lot of drummers suggested me to play with the same sticks from practice pad or the kit. I think there is a depends your approach, depends your goal. For example, Dennis Chambers used practice pad, no practice pad, but pillows and probably heavy sticks. But because Dennis Chambers played in the past where probably he was not able to play with the drum kit in his place, so he was forced to do with pillows and heavier sticks. So I think that basically the key behind all of that is focusing about the move that you do and the motion of your wrist and find that whipping motion, especially when you do the downstroke like this, is not about basically how fluid could be the movement at the beginning. I mean, in my opinion, but the power, the energy needs to flow in a specific way when you don't feel rigid from your elbow and your arm is super flexible. You think that it's just a single strokes. That's it. In my opinion, that's the best energy and the best strategy to start building the triple molar technique approach that is in my warm up and practice routine since years. I don't remember. I think I was in Berkeley 10 years ago in Berkeley College of Music, and already at that time I was used to play on the pillow, molar technique, single strokes, paradiddles, double strokes, and I keep remembering this is my actual warm up routine since 10 years, and it worked. It was okay because
Yeah.
at least the key could be having a practice pad with less rebound in that case. But you have the same sticks you currently use. So you build your muscle memory around your classical sticks, and then you bring that muscle memory to the drums. And that for me was a game changer, honestly.
This is something I've been thinking about ever since I talked to Richie Martinez last year. But basically, he was saying like arm, elbow, wrist, fingers all working in concert, right? And it's sort of like what you did. So the elbow leads, the wrist follows, and then the last stage is the fingers. And when I watched you warming up on the pad, it felt to me like you're getting some snap from the middle finger to sort of end the entire motion. And I just wanted to check with you to see if I was completely off base in thinking about it that way.
You know, every options for me is great, but when you, for example, move too much, you risk to compromise basically the foundation of the Möller technique. For example, from the concept that I learned from Tony Royster, Jim Chapin built the technique to save energy. So less move you do, shorter is the movement you do, and you get the best result in terms of power and energy that you save. In my opinion, it's something that could fit, depends your body and how energetic you are on the drums. For example, in my situation, I'm very lazy, so I'm not training at the gym. So I'm a skinny guy, and my sticks, if you don't know, I use 7A. This is because I really like shorter sticks, and when I hold the sticks, I don't hold like this. I know that is wrong. This is the correct position that everybody should teach. For example, with my left hand, I'm left-handed. I usually hold the sticks like this. I love to leave, especially for my left hand, these two fingers here, but because I need to be more fast and push with my first finger. That for me is super important. And when I, for example, do the Möller technique approach, instead of doing something like this and raise so much, I just, because it's all in this very short move that you do. Even this kind of speed that basically could be one, it is not very fast, but is, in my opinion, is the best balance, especially for your weaker hand. My weaker hand is my right, so every time is, for example, 1 bar with my left, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I do 4 bars with my right hand, so I can combine, I can make a better balance. But yeah, this concept basically changed my perspective, because when I want to go faster on drums, and basically when I want to move from the snare to the floor tom, that for me is very unnatural move, because I have to do like this instead of having the left side drum kit. So having the motion under my control, thanks to this whipping motion that I'm developing with my left especially, is very important. So I'm not focusing about doing this kind of wave, but very short and very consistent in terms of volume, in terms of dynamic, and in terms of energy. When I do, for example, with my right hand, that is the hand that I use for my backbeat, in that case, I'm really focused on doing very, very powerful strokes. Even 10 minutes straight only with my right hand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For your motion and your power on the snare especially.
And is that a conventional pad you're using, or is that like a gel pad?
This is the Reflex, when it was only Reflex without Zildjian. So you can imagine, was from many, many years ago. In my opinion, is one of the best pads in the game. I have there some Bigford drum pad. I have the mini pad that you wrap to your leg by Minol. It's one of my favorites. When I'm in the backstage before concert, I really love to do a consistent warm-up. My warm-up before concerts are usually single, doubles, paradiddles, and flame tap repetitiously.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm a huge fan of practice pad. I would love to find the classic Bigford with the. Do you remember the one with the simulated the snare? Is
yes.
I think that the name is Vic Pad. It's very old. That's my dream. I was never able to find a new one, or in general a used one in good condition. But yeah, practice pad is still useful, but people needs to remember, in my opinion, that we play drums. We don't play pad. We play acoustic drums. We don't play electronic drums. or I mean, depends what kind of situation you are. Sometimes when you do a corporate gig, or when you want to practice at home, and maybe the weather is not the best weather. I remember when I was used to live in Boston, I remember -22, -23, compared to Italy was wow, it was very shock for me. So in that case, electronic drum set is an amazing solution, but practice pad and electronic drums unfortunately can let you be away from the real deal with the drums in terms of rebound, in terms of sound and the texture, especially of the cymbals, when you want to practice some concept of swing, samba, or in general even fusion, some comping that you do on the ride. When you do with the pad is a little bit weird. I gotta say, I'm using these kind of cymbals, the silent one. I used the Zildjian in the past. Now that I'm with Meinl, I got this one from Meinl. It's an amazing solution that could be perfect for an apartment situation. But real drums is real drums. I always also to my students I suggest to play with a real instrument just to develop different things at the same time. When you're on the pad, you build your speed, you build maybe your endurance, you can play marching stuff and building speed if you play with a no rebound pad. But drums is drums, and yeah, that's an advice that honestly a lot of people asked me, hey Gianluca, do you prefer electronic drums or acoustic kit, practice pad, no practice pad, pillow, no pillow? The answer for me is drums. If you don't have drums, pillow could be great, but in that case also we should be aware about tendinites and very very bad kind of burning for your muscle. That thing is not to, I think, to underestimate in my opinion.
Makes sense. So you said you were left-handed, which explains part of the way you play, but you also play completely open. So was it the type of situation where you were left-handed, but you just started learning on a right-handed kit, and then rather than switch over, you just sort of continued?
Yeah, basically, yeah. This is the story. My dad is not a professional drummer, but was a huge drum lover. He was used to play drums when I was born. I started to play drums at 2. Now I'm 30 years. I'm from 94. And I remember when I was born, I remember myself just a tiny baby in the room with the huge drums in front of me. My father was used to play with a group, with a band, play some tunes, some songs at home, Earth, Wind and Fire, for example. So I grew up with that kind of music, Michael Jackson, Earth, Wind and Fire, Chaka Khan. And since when I was born, I was very attracted by the drums because it was like a super huge toy, something that was not very common with the other babies. At 2 years, when I was 2 years, I literally sit down on the drums with my father, and for me it was super spontaneous to play like this. I'm left-handed. I write me with my left hand, brush my teeth, everything. So mainly I'm right-handed. I'm discovering now that I can consider myself ambidextrous because I do a lot of things with my right too. But the primary things are with my left. Immediately when I play drums, when I start to play drums, the hi-hat was led by my left, and my dad, because was a huge fan of Billy Cobham, immediately he saw the fact that I was playing the hi-hat with my left. He realized that I was left-handed, and immediately we switched the cymbals. So I had the ride on my left and the crash on my right, and in that case was super easy. So I always play since ever. Yeah, since when I started I play open, and I never play crossed. The only situation when I play crossed is when I play the fat snare. I have a second snare that I plays on my left, and I play crossed, but the my right foot is always on the kick, so just crossing the hands. And honestly, I practice it a lot. Crossing that my hands at the beginning was very hard because I don't like to cross because I feel like I don't know I'm feeling tight. I don't know how to say in English, but I don't feel comfortable Definitely, especially because I never practiced it enough. The control to raise my hi-hat while I'm doing the backbeat. So I remember at the beginning I was sticking all the time. I said, "Wow, literally, I'm again a student, 5 years old student," and that was amazing because I started again to study a new approach, controlling the dynamics and building a new consistency. Now in my actual set, I have a lot of things on my left side. I have one stack that I love to use. I place a new smack stack, the clap stack, next to my fat snare. So I have everything on my left side. Yeah, that's the only time when that I play crossed, but usually always open. And I don't know why a lot of people constantly, still today, ask me if I'm left-handed or no. Because usually I can understand if they ask if I have the ride on my right side. But with the ride of my left, I think that could be very clear because it's the same as Billy Cobham. For example, Simon Phillips. Simon Phillips plays an open-ended approach, but he's still using the ride on his right side. Billy plays the ride with the left. So sometimes the people is very curious, and also I know I lead sometimes a lot of chops, a lot of licks that I do. Sometimes I really don't know, but for some people I should start with my left, but I start with my right. So still today is a mystery. So yeah, basically always open-ended. I really support the open-ending approach, and I suggest also the right-handed drummers to try even once, but just to understand how many different possibilities you have. Because with your left hand, you can lead the groove between hi-hats and snare, and with the right hand, you can have a lot of possibilities between colors and tones and percussion, cymbals. So it's something that I really suggest everybody to do that and try.
Yeah. Another possibility is kind of fake open playing on the hi-hat, of the type that people are doing now, that there are a bunch of stack grooves, speaking of the stack, where you're catching most of the notes with the left hand on the hat and you're catching the rim shot with the right, but you're still maybe catching an odd downbeat here or there with the right on the hats. So it still feels right-hand lead. It doesn't feel super janky for a right-hander. But then you have the right hand free to sweep around the rest of the kit. And of course, like people are putting bongos on the kick now. Yeah.
Because that's the main concept, especially now that in the modern drumming community, a lot of people are starting using more percussions, more effect, more stacks. Now people is well involved to build the fact that you can keep a kind of ostinato with your left and build your creativity with your right. But it's not only for open ending. I think that now drums is really evolved. Now I see in the last 10 years, now that we are all connected by Instagram, in the last 10 years, I saw a huge evolution. Now drummers are not right-handed or left-handed. I see so many different possibilities. And this is also because I'm very happy to say everybody are influencing each others. You see something from somebody, you stole and you build your own sound, and then somebody is doing the same with your sound, and this is great. So talking about myself first, I cannot consider myself at the level that I reached today, and I want to still keep practicing and improving, but I cannot consider myself without all the major inspiration that I had, because thanks to all the drummers that I'm following and I respect and forever support, that I built my own voice.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's cool to hear a positive take about what social media has done for drums. And I completely agree. Obviously, I owe my entire living to social media, so far be it from me to be completely negative. But I agree that in a very positive sense, it's kind of flattened the world in that everyone's influenced by everyone now, and all these styles are just getting this kind of crosstalk, such that even 10 years ago, you can trace the origin of some of these things. Like, I think the bongos on the kick drum probably came from the Dallas guys like Cleon Edwards. And obviously Spanky had a huge influence with like moving the right hand accents to the snare and all the weird subdivision things he does. And now you'll see like a German kid just freely switching between those influences. Like, he'll muffle a cymbal and it's like, okay, well that's the Houston guys like Chris Dave and Eric Harland. He'll have bongos on the kick drum, and like that's the Dallas guys, and like it's become more of just a drum language in a really positive way, I think.
Now the drum community now is 100% worldwide. Everybody are influenced, and the thing is that I still consider a positive vision about social media. Sometimes I'm a little bit afraid about how fast everything changed. I remember I started posting something on my Instagram when I was 21 or 20. I was in Berkeley, so 2015, I think, and 2015, yes. And I remember that I was one of the first of the people that came out. I have to say thanks to Instagram, because it's thanks to the popularity that I reached there that I became more into the scene. I think that the goal is changed now, because at my time I started building my Instagram because my plan was building also a YouTube channel at the same time. But most important, because my main goal is playing with other musicians. So if I post, if people can see me, maybe I can get some booking from somebody. That was my mission always, and still today. Now you can choose to be a content creator, completely be focused on that career. That I gotta say, depends your moves, depends how you do that. Could be even more remunerative than playing gigs. So I think that if works, that's amazing. The thing that I'm really sad is that sometimes maybe people forget that drums at the least is in the world of music. We should play always and play with somebody, even a jam session or with other musicians, but just to remember and refresh the ideas of the community, that drums is not only about showing technique or to make some content, but is also about education, but is also about music, about telling your story. And that's honestly my main goal for now. Is a couple of years that I really changed my way to post the content that I do on Instagram. I was used to post so many videos from my practice room, and I really love the idea that a lot of followers that I still have, they are and they were witnesses about all the changes that I did in the last 10 years. But also I decide to change, and I decide to be more focused about who I really am now. And the Gianlucca of now in 2024 we are talking is more focused about playing live and keep all of my followers updated about all the sessions I'm doing. But in general, I don't want to lose the focus of music, but I will in a genuine way support all the drum community we have on Instagram, because it's becoming huge, but really huge. And it's great that we can take so many informations each other's and building great connections. I started doing drum festivals last year. For me, it was the first time usually, because I was more focused about gigs, or sometimes when they called me, I was busy. But last year I started doing some drum festival, and it was amazing meeting the drummers that you only know on Instagram, and you meet them in real life and you talk. I want to mention one of my, he's like a brother for me, Chris Turner. You probably know him.
Yeah, he was on the podcast. Great guy.
Oh, nice. Perfect. This guy is amazing. I remember I saw some videos about him on YouTube or on Instagram. Then we met in person last year, Man, what an unbelievable guy. Was amazing because we literally talk more about life than drums. The way that Instagram can really connect the people and then you build your friendship, your connections, that's something that I'll never regret. I love that, honestly. And I hope that the community can evolve and be aware and be away from the toxic vibe that sometimes is in all the in all the music scene on Instagram, because it's not only about drums, it's in everything.
Yeah. Yeah, I think.
I consider Instagram a very genuine place to build up connections and build up your ideas. Absolutely.
Well, I agree. I wanted to talk a little bit more about how you developed as a player, because earlier when we're talking about the stick grip, you're saying, contrary to all the teaching, you discovered that you like to hold the stick pretty far back with the middle finger fulcrum and the back
Only with
fingers.
my left. Only with my left. This is
I see.
important.
But what I registered was that this is something you kind of figured out on your own through trial and error. So I'm curious, what are some things what are some great tips that you've gotten from teachers over the years versus what are some things you felt like you figured out on your own?
First of all, shout out to my mentor, my teacher in Berkeley, James Murphy. It was my teacher in Berkeley. He really opened me a new world. Basically, one of the best advice that I got from him was talking about the glue method. I don't know if you ever heard about that.
No, I haven't.
It's an alternative way to concept the chops. It's very easy because we say chops, linear, and these are common names. Everybody knows that. James Murphy, I think that he got this from Dave DiCenso, and he built by himself. He built this. I can say it's a state of mind. I think also, and he calls this method glue method because it's a way to basically build your chops and how to process the chops that you are playing. Imagine the glue; everything is sticking each other. So James Murphy is amazing, especially in my opinion. He is an amazing drummer, etc., etc., etc. He is amazing. But for me, his specialty is sextuplets. He is super clean and everything is super on point. And from this very easy concept, from a six-stroke roll, he built a huge way to build the six-stroke roll around the kit. This is something that really helped me building my own sound and building my own shops. When I was younger in Berkeley, I was more into linear drumming. So drummers like Aaron Spears, rest in peace, Chris Coleman, Eric Moore, were my Tony Royster Jr. were more my references. So very linear, not jazzy in terms of approach. So everything is very easy, not easy to play, but easy to understand because you have all the information. When you hear the chops, you have all the information. When you, for example, I was on YouTube and I was used to slow the video. When you literally play a huge section of chops in that way, you slow it down. It's very hard to play when you are on the drums, but statistically for your mind, is definitely not hard to get.
There's not a lot of decoding that needs to happen.
Exactly.
Like, once you slow it down to like 75%, you're like,
Something
okay, I
like
know
that.
immediately what's happening. Yeah.
Depends, because if they play 30-second notes, 0.50. So depends. Everybody's doing that, and I keep do that sometimes. Depends what kind of feel I'm gonna analyze. I do also with the groups, especially when I wanna analyze the ghost notes. But the thing is that when I was in Berkeley and I was also talking with James Murphy, we talk a lot about the glue method because we found it together a way. He taught me a way to have a better decode of all the chops that I saw from the drummer that I mentioned before. Is basically I don't wanna be the classic drummer to say that, but it is true. If you play slow, you get the key because it's all about muscle memory and giving time to your brain to analyze all the sounds that you have to do. And especially because this kind of linear pattern and linear feel are basically combination between singles, doubles, and paradiddle with a kick. So it's not something that is impossible. I really suggest everybody, even beginner drummer, to just even play around the paradiddle between snare and toms, even without the kick, but just to start memorizing the different kind of rebound that you have from the snare, from tone 1, 2, and floor tom. So when you start building your combination between singles, doubles, and paradiddles, or also, for example, flam taps, you start already to build your vocabulary. But when, for example, with James, we talk about this kind of linear stuff, in a certain moment of my life, I discovered a new category of chops or about and phrasing. And is exactly the kind of drums that I really love most. Is the topic that I'm studying every day, is the kind of drumming that I really love, and is everything coming from the jazz approach. So it's not about a linear 30-second notes, but it's something that has in between subdivisions, polyrhythmic, silence, different kind of textures and colors. And to make some examples, these are the classic kind of direction and feels that you can see from drummers like Ronald, Mason, Mike Mitchell, and Thomas Pridgen sometimes when switch from that approach. Also Spanky, when Spanky plays the concept in his groove, is an incredible drummer that loves to make subdivisions and polyrhythms. So building that approach in a feel, when you're doing a feel or a chops, or in general, even when you're comping the groove and you build all of this, that's my way. Andy Prado Jr., for example, is a good friend of mine. He's doing amazing. He is really into that philosophy. Ronald, in my opinion, could be one of the best references because I had the chance to spend a lot of time with him, really a lot of time with him. And for me, he's amazing. He is an amazing person. With me, it was amazing for real. And he gave me so many tips. But one of the most important tips that he gave to me was to relax more my mindset when I was playing, because I was sometimes thinking too much to do more. But he really helped me to remember me that I have to serve music. And sometimes when you practice, when you want to play this kind of feel, you will never play that kind of feel when you are on the gig, because when you are on the gig, maybe you are inspired from the musicians you have around, and you can change completely your vocabulary. So this kind of approach starts from the jazz, and I play jazz. I really love play jazz, especially modern jazz, fusion, and acid jazz also. So that kind of direction where you are not restricted to 30-second notes in a row. I really switch it. I really love to leave a lot of space sometimes when I do my fills, take some break, doing some silence and switching between different kind of rudiments. And also part of my sound is be helped by stacks. For example, I love to use the smack stack or small cymbals, splashes, because I really love to explore different sounds. Aaron Spears, for example, said sometimes to practice and only with certain things on drums. For example, you have hi-hat, snare, kick, tom 1, 2, and floor tom and cymbals. Okay, you have to build a drum solo for 10 minutes only with hat, snare, and kick. And you have to use everything from that three. This is an exercise that I suggest everybody because it's the way to build your creativity and is the way to also explore new sound because you can play rim, you can play different texture of the cymbals, and you can switch between the tone of the snare and the dynamics. So it's something that can really help. But yeah, talking about the best advice that I got the idea of the glue method, so a better way to visualize and have a better execution of the chops, focusing at the starting point of that is the 6-stroke roll, orchestrated from only with the hands or hands and kick. And another thing that really helped me was when I was able to did private lessons with Terry Carrington. And when I studied with her, she taught me a lot of concepts that she got from Jacques Dejonet. So she helped me with the ride approach. A good way to is not a specific exercise, the way to swing or the way to hit the bell, but in general, how to touch the ride, just to be very smooth and try to create a different level. Depends if you're doing a comping and drum solo, what kind of soloist you are comping, if it's a guitar, if it's a bass player. So I remember that we talk a lot about sound, and she told me a lot of concepts that she got from Jacques Dejonet. So you can imagine that was something honestly amazing for me. And I did a lot of master class when I was in Berkeley. I remember Enrique de Almeida. We studied polyrhythms. Tony Thunder Jr. also. I did some classes with him about double bass pedal. So a lot of things I got from my teachers in Berkeley. Before Berkeley, I studied in Italy with some teachers, but I was more in. I don't want to say that I did everything by myself because I had teachers, but a lot of the approach was in my practice on my own. I decided before Berkeley to explore and building my own vocabulary first and focusing about basically my wishes. I was also very young, so you can imagine I was immature and not ready maybe to be focused on the practice with the teacher behind you that say, okay, you have to study this, and that. So in Berkeley, I gotta say the first couple of months were very hard because I reapproached a reality that was very far from Italy, but the motivation was huge, and I will forever thanks the school, all the mates that I found there, and my teachers that helped me, because if I'm here, it's also thanks to all of them.
Of course. But what are some things that you had to figure out on your own? Because we've been through and you had a lot of great lessons from the teachers, but what are some things besides like the stick grip that you feel like you figured out on your own that nobody told you?
There is not something specific in terms of grip or certain position that I developed by my own, but for example, there are some exercises that I really love to do. For example, do you mind if I show you on the pad?
I don't mind at all. The only thing is the audio won't pick it up.
For example, when I'm on the hi-hat, sometimes when I do some fills, I really love forcing my left hand with the kick. So, for example, I'm playing a classic groove. And when I do some fills, I really love, for example, to stay only on the hi-hat.
Mm-hmm.
So I built by myself a huge way to push my left hand a lot. Or, for example, switching between my hi-hat to the stack or the toms or the snare with some certain phrase like is a triplet, basically starting with my right hand and two hit with the left.
Yeah.
When you see me play, even in a random video, you will see something that you can clearly see that it's something that comes from my vocabulary. I think that I developed by my own was the fact that everybody suggested me to find a better position to play. I play very low, very low. Maybe because I really love to play with the cymbals very high, so they are into me, and for me it's very easy to be there. Especially I can control in a better way the sound that I want to get from the stick. Something that I built by my own, honestly, I don't know because I know that I have now my vocabulary. I know that I have my language when I play, of course, influenced by my heroes and the drummers that I follow. But sometimes I think that there are so many things, but I cannot even describe because it's very automatic. It's something that you do with just muscle memory. I have a lot of licks and I have a lot of maybe fields that are part of my sound that I usually play. For example, the thing that I showed you before, just single strokes and single strokes with my kick, double strokes with my left, staying on the hi-hat and try to push a lot my left hand. But in general, this would be amazing to discuss when we can play in front of each other. In that case, I can tell, okay, this is mine. I know that I built by myself.
Funny you should mention that. Definitely hit me up the next time you're in New York because I just did a couple in-person lessons. So if you
Oh, you based it in New York.
yeah. I just did one with JP Bouvet last week where we both put on lav mics, mic'd the drums up and just switched places and talked for like an hour and a half demonstrating stuff. So I'm always down if you happen to be in town. But I'm also curious about one other thing. I think this is a lot of fun, just sort of exploring, at least conceptually, and influences. So when you're talking about the type of playing that you got into that wasn't linear playing, or I suppose the old word that people would use was gospel chops, but the type of playing that's more like Ron Bruner, Thomas Pridgeon, Mason, and I would throw in honorable mentions Xavier Ware and probably Jarvis Yoakley, and I feel like I've been and obviously Andy Prado. I feel like I would describe this as kind of gestural playing, and a couple years ago I decided to try to approach that sort of thing more, and the concept in my head was I want to be able to just think in a big phrase and have my hands do what they need to do. So if you think about the way Andy, for instance, plays, there are a lot of things where he's sort of just like, almost like a boxer. Like he'll sort of be like quiet and tentative and keep to himself, and then bah, and then quiet and tentative and keep to himself, and then bah, and almost like fainting like a boxer in a match. But his hands have some muscle memory about what to do, because if that's not underlying, then it won't sound good. So I feel like the next stage for my game is to add those sort of explosive singles the way like Xavier or Andy do. And tell me if you agree with this, but I feel like maybe the godfather of that is Billy Cobham.
For me, you mean?
Well, when I think about like if you go back to maybe where that style of playing originated, because like maybe Billy influenced Dennis, which influenced like more people down the line, but
but Vini influenced me. Vini, I think, I mentioned before that I grew up with Billy because Billy was the first drummer that I saw that he literally played with the right on the left.
right.
So I said, "Oh wow, okay, that's the reference." My father showed to me, and I said, "Okay, that's the reference." But I realized many years later that the drummer I think I grew up most because I listened so much on the records was Vinny Colaiuta, because Vinny recorded also for a lot of Italian singer. So talking about, for example, Eros Ramazzotti, Eric Moore just done a tour with Eros. So Vini recorded with Eros. I grew up with the music of Eros, and I remember that I really grew up with that kind of texture for the singles, for the easy way to play grooves and doubles. But when I start studying Vini for real, I really understand why so many drummers are playing like that, because Vini was the beginning of something, or in my vision of the things, for example, the everything about my internal concept, if I have to make a decision about the two most influential people from the history for the modern drummer for me, Vinny Colaiuta and Dennis Chambers.
Mm-hmm.
Because Dennis Chambers, basically, when I saw him live this summer, because with a guitar player I'm working with, Matteo Mancuso, we opened it for Mike Stern, and Dennis was playing with Mike Stern, and by the way, when he said, "Oh, Gianluca, I'm proud of you, amazing, you're amazing," I cried on him, and I have a lot of people that saw that I literally start crying. Oh, Daniel. I was super Italian, and I'm super proud of that, screaming like I can't believe my hero, blah 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 blah. But when I saw Danny playing his concept, his way to play, I realized why Ronald and all the other drummers plays like this, because he really built a new way to approach the drums. For me, I gotta say even more than Billy, because Billy Billy was a game changer, but I see Dennis more contemporary for me.
Right.
Also because I grew up with more records that I listened from Dennis and Vinny.
Mm-hmm.
But there too, I'm pretty sure that, I mean, maybe a lot of people will be agree or even disagree with me, but they really started a new chapter for every drummer, a starting point to get a lot of informations. For example, Steve Gadd also for me was a huge reference. Dave Weckl. Dave Weckl was one of my favorite drummers. He is still one of my favorite drummers. But when I was 14, 13, that I was very big into the fusion music, I remember that I listened a lot the Dave Weckl band. Synergy was one of my favorite records of all time. But when I grew, I literally felt that I got a lot of information, and I felt the necessity to go over and exploring. In fact, Vinny, even if I started listening Vinny when I was a kid, I literally started exploring Vinny recently, since 6, 7 years that I'm there, trying to be in that direction. And Vinny will be forever one of the best references, especially for not only about the playing, but about the mentality. Why he thought to do some specific groups or some specific fields. The things that I'm questioning to myself most is why some drummers are sensible enough to play the splash in a specific part, or for example hitting the ride not as a crash but just hitting the ride or only the bell. That's the topic I'm currently practicing, how to building my musicality, building my is right to say sensibility to music
Sure.
in it makes sense.
Yeah, tastes. Yeah.
Yeah, the taste. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and that's one of the main questions that I do when I think about Vinny or Dennis, but Vinny especially because the huge amount of records that I listened.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, the hour has flown by. It feels like we've been talking for 10 minutes and we've almost been talking for an hour. But before I send you off, what are you working on currently that you're most excited about? Do you have any projects that are coming up? Anything that you want to direct people toward?
First of all, I want to mention a good friend of mine. I love him so much. He's one of my best friends. His name is Matteo Mancuso. I don't know if you know him. He's becoming very popular also in US. He's a virtuoso guitar player, an amazing guitar player from my hometown, from Palermo, Sicily. And I'm very happy because that group is a trio project with Matteo, Riccardo Oliva on bass, my best friend is my brother from another mother, and myself. Matteo is the leader of this group. He's doing an amazing job. He did a huge record, and we are touring a lot this summer, this year, starting from January 2024. We did a lot of gigs. It was an amazing experience, and honestly, I will cheer him forever. I will forever support him because he's doing well, and I'm very happy to be there. I want to mention Julian Pollack, J3PO. I don't know if you know him also.
I do.
That was an amazing experience because for me was the first time that an American artist called me for tour, because they came to Italy for touring, and he came with Adrian Ferrol, my favorite bass player in the planet. And I had a chance last year to do a tour with Julian and Adrian, and that's amazing. We played also with Julian this year in 2024. And Ricardo, my best friend, was with me in that occasion, and we are gonna planning a new tour coming from for 2025 with Julian. I did my first arena for pop music in Italy with a couple of artists that are amazing. They are doing an amazing job as well. I toured for a pop singer, an Iranian pop singer called Shadmer, that is a good friend of mine. I was booked from this work when I was 21, 22 years old, just down with Berkeley. So shout out to all the guys, and because they believed in me and they helped me to build my approach on big stages, arenas, and playing with the sequencer and the click. So it was super great. I'm very happy because in this moment of my life, I consider myself more versatile than before, because I'm playing jazz, R&B, hip hop, modern jazz, and pop music. So I'm covering a lot of words, and this is great. But yeah, there are so many people to mention. I want to mention now the people I'm currently working. We are planning good years, and the next year will be huge, I'm pretty sure. And I'm great because I saw that my work was also well recognized from the community, also from Dramio with the recent nomination I got from Just Drummer 2024. So it's great because I'm still from Italy. I'm not in US. I would love to be there. I'm very happy to be in Italy. I'm in Milan, actually. I love this city. I'm feeling well. It's my new home. But in Italy, we don't have the same possibilities we have outside of when you are in US. US is amazing. I remember when I lived there, it's incredible. I love to work there when I can. And this makes me very proud that also from the place I was recognized from the work that I did. So I'm very happy. It was a good year, and I'm very motivated for the next.
Fantastic. And would you say the hub for all of this stuff, if someone wants to follow you, is your Instagram?
Yeah, apparently, yeah. I'm a little bit lazy. I want to start to do again my YouTube videos and covers because I really miss that part. Because when I was used to do covers on YouTube, I really loved the way that I showed my approach to a song. Also, sometimes I played too much fills. Sometimes I remember I was even a kid, I can consider at that time. But I want to start doing again some covers and stuff to show my vision of my perspective about music. But Instagram is the best place to follow me because I keep everybody updated, and it's the place where basically I can show easily some clips about my gigs, so you can see me in live action. And this is for me very important because I put always the music with the drums at the first place.
Amazing. Well, this has been a lot of fun. It's been great to finally speak. Great
No,
picking your
man,
brain, hearing your thoughts.
thank you so much.
Well, really appreciate it. Maybe we'll do a part 2 at some point. But great to wrap, and have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you. Ciao, man.